Good evening, everyone. I wanted to make a quick preliminary guide for those people that are stuck in Party Finder and might have a bit of struggle on certain bosses of this fight. I think it's a lot of fun, maybe even better than the previous Criterion dungeon, and I think a lot of people might be missing out on some fun content that might be actually quite easy to do once you understand some of the mechanics. So I'm gonna make a quick and rudimentary guide to just walk you through some of these mechanics per boss. I will make a timeline down below for each boss so you can skip to some of the mechanics if you wanna skip ahead. And then I'm just gonna go through some of these mechs. I'm not gonna go over the ad phases as much because they are fairly easy to go through and you will get through it on your own eventually. It's definitely not something that really needs a lot of explanation. So I'm just going to mainly cover the boss mechanics and some of the variations that it can have, and also go more in detail about the later bosses, because not a lot of guides have been made on those. So for the first boss, Shisho, he has some mechanics mainly regarding clouds that he summons, and I would definitely recommend looking up the guide by, I think it was, Sting Knight. He made a interesting guide with some nice editing and explanations for some of the mechs here. I think you can definitely use this as a reference for your own runs, but I'm also going to go over it for a little bit just to show you how we do it, which is not that much different, but it might make a nice reference for other parties. So I'll just play this for now and then cover some of the mechanics that occur in here. So Enkyo is just a raid wide. This will occur many times in the fight, but it's always starting off with a raid wide for every boss. Just gotta heal through that. Stormcloud Summons. This is the part where he summons clouds. Now, in this pattern where there's clouds all about, this means he's gonna either charge either 2 or 3 times. In that charge, he's gonna consume some of these clouds, and based on the amount of consumption, the remaining clouds on the field are gonna explode for a certain radius. Now, in this pattern, since the clouds are all about, you can kind of tell that it's gonna be either 2 or 3 charges. There is a pattern where all the clouds are lined up in one row, in the center, like a conga line, and in that case, it will only do one line charge. But in this case, it's gonna do 2 or 3. So this is 1, this is 2. This is 3. Now there's only 3 clouds remaining, and what he's gonna do, he's gonna summon line cleaves, and he's gonna summon 3 of them. Now what's important here is that these 3 clouds that remain are gonna explode for half room AoEs. These clouds are gonna do humongous AoEs. So what we want to do is, you can see that there's a little pattern. It's like a little triangle-ish, which is a bit skewed towards the north in this case, like the end is here. So what we do is we want to find the part that is skewed, which is this part, and then go opposite of it, so around the 3 marker in this case, and then we rotate towards the thing that explodes. So this cloud is going to explode soon, so we wait, explodes, alright, we move into it, and then move out all of the line dodges, and that's the mechanic. Now there's a lot of variations of it, but we'll go through that another time, or you can look up the guide that I mentioned for more variations. Alright, so the tank buster happens. Slither is just a tail cleave, which gives you damage down. It's not too bad. You can still clear without too many damage downs. Alright, this is a dash mechanic. For this, you just want to identify whether there is... Let me scroll back a bit. Here we go. You want to identify the wall where the initial set of rings appear. If the rings appear on this side, then you know the safe zone is going to be on this side somewhere. Now, since he dashes to the right, in this case, like this side is also going to be cleaved, then 1 will be safe. There is a variation where he's going to go this side, and there's rings here, and then this whole section will be like encased in a sense, and then 2 will be safe. You just want to identify that and then go to one of these markers for the safe spot. It's fairly simple. Again, I would recommend for some of the variations to watch the guide that I mentioned, because there can be some variations of it. Now, Unnatural Wail, this will be a stack and spread debuff. For this you can see the timer of the stack is lower than the spread, so we're going to stack first. Now this will always be roll based, so it's going to be me and the tank that are going to stack together, and the DPS that are going to stack. And then we're going to find a safe spot. So these little ads will spawn, and you might know from the initial ad phase they're going to do like a hand up, right? And you want to identify which one of these squares basically, or quadrants, is going to be safe. Now what we do is we identify the ones that are looking away from the boss. These two are looking away from the boss, so we know that this section will be safe, this whole square. So the square will always be as large as where the ads initially spawn. So there's a very, very large square here, and we're going to just stack together with the tank and the DPS, like here. And there we go. Cleave happens now. You can see how large this square is, and you have a lot of room to go about. You can also have the variation where it's spread first. In that case, I would recommend having the healer south, and then like ranged and melee on the sides, and tank up north. You can kind of figure out who goes where on your own. Alright, and now for the second set, we do spreads, and we just identify again, oh, these two are looking away from the boss, so this square will be safe. So we just spread about. And there we go. That's that mechanic. Another Stormcloud Summons. Now this one is not a normal version. You can see there's clouds all about. This one is just a skill issue, where if you fail to dance, you will get some damage downs. It's actually quite fun. It's a test of your reflexes. Not too bad. Alright, then we go to the next mechanic. So for this mechanic, we want to identify what he's casting. You can see that there is a stack and a spread debuff again. Now this can be reversed as well, where we spread first and then stack. Since it's stack first, what I do again is go with my tank, since it's always roll based. I go with my tank, and since it's Eye of the Thunder Vortex, that means it's going to be a spread AoE around the boss. So we want to be away from the boss, and then stack. Now we do this east and west, but you can also do this north and south, like other people do. You can kind of do this up to you. Alright, sweet. And then we go in, because it's going to do a donut next. And then spread out. Now if this cast bar that he's doing here is, I think it's called Thunder Vortex of the Eye. If Eye is last in the cast bar, that means it's going to do a donut first, and then an AoE. So you gotta have to change it up sometimes. But yeah, that's that. Not too bad of a mechanic. Another raid wide. Haunting Cry. Now this will spawn some ghosts, and they're gonna tell it to players. These ghosts are gonna do continuous AoEs around them whenever they are moving. So what we do is we just make them go across the center. So just stretch them across, away from other players. Yep. And now two players are gonna have these markers above their heads. That means they're gonna do a huge spread AoE that they're gonna drop. So you wanna drop them away from these towers. So what we have is these players with markers go away from the towers. They stretch their tethers along the outside. They just move this way. And the DPS, they will move back this way along the outside edge, because they want to have to end up on these towers. You can kind of see that that's happening here. Now the tank will do the same. He's just taking the other way around, getting his uptime. And that's that. So yeah, you just gotta remember that always move around the outside of the arena while doing this. Never go near one of these ghosts that you stretch across the center. Fairly simple. So let's go back a bit. Oh yeah. So after the towers are soaked, he always casts Thunder Vortex. This is a donut. Always go center. This never changes. Alright, Tank Buster. Tail Cleave. Always in this order. Now he's gonna do another Stormcloud Summons. A different variation. Now this is another 2 or 3 soak. Because there's no conga line in the center. Alright, 2 charges. So he's gonna do 2 line AoEs. And then we have to identify the first line. So this line is the first line that spawns. And this cloud is out of the AoE. That means he's not gonna explode first. But this one is on the left. So we want to go to the right and then go counterclockwise along the exploding clouds. And that will be safe, but yeah, we killed it here. Yeah, we didn't show you the one where it's only one line AoE, but it's usually clockwise, counterclockwise. You can also look at the guide that I mentioned. Okay, ad phase, we just skip through this is not very interesting. There's a lot of testing of your reflexes. Okay, second boss. This is the rat. This guy will have some mechanics that you have to kind of get used to. He's not too bad, but he can be a bit of a difficult mechanic, or a bit of a difficult wall, especially because he has some hard mechanics at the end. Now he starts off with a raid wide that also has bleed, or burn in this case, so mitigate it and heal through it. Seal Scurrying Sparks is going to summon some stones, and you want to identify the ones that go across in a certain pattern. So here you can see there are 2 people that have a certain debuff, in this case both of the DPS. You want to share this. This is a fire puddle that has to be shared with another player. Even though the description doesn't say it has to be shared, it does. So in this case, since both of the DPS have it, we want to have melees up north, ranged up south. And then you are with your partner. And you go to a rock that is in a certain formation where it's along these lines. So if it is getting cleaved by a line, that's perfect. You just want to be oriented around this one. You'll get used to where these spawn eventually, it's not too bad. But find these rocks that are getting center cleaved by these line AoEs. So there's one there and there's one here. Now he's either gonna do a triangle buff on the guitar, basically here, like he does here, like the Brazen Ballad, or it's gonna be a red circle. Now the triangle means this is all gonna expand and do a different thing. So this is gonna be like become a donut. The lines are gonna like split. Everything's gonna split basically. If it's gonna be a red circle around these guitars, it means it's gonna expand. So all these AoEs are gonna expand. You want to be on the mark in the corner, basically in those squares. Now, since it's gonna split up, you want to be around this area, and that will be safe. It's always opposite of each other. Okay, and this is Hades cleaves. I think you might be used to it. Protean, and then you move in to where it doesn't get cleaved. Yeah, there you go. Alright, fairly simple so far. Next up, Thundercall. He's gonna spawn some orbs and they're gonna explode. You want to find the one that is very much alone and sad. So these ones are all kind of orientated a bit more towards this area. So that means you want to get to this orb, because this is far away from the rest. Now the healer, it's always going to be a healer, will have this little marker above his head. And he's going to get a hammer and going to get small. And you can also make the orb small with it, so you can reduce the AoE. And you create a safe spot. And now you're going to get a cleave basically, and this can be soaked with you in the tank. Now don't let other people soak it, this is a 2-pair soak. Do not have DPS soak it as well. This is not a party stack, this is a 2-person stack. I don't know why this is the case. It's a bit of a weird mechanic, but yeah, that's the way it is. Next up is a tank buster with a burn. Alright, and now we get tethers. This is very similar to program loop in top, but yeah, you can see there's two people with a debuff timer that is shorter than the others. So I have a squirrel that is 17 seconds, and Ashe has a mushroom that is 17 seconds. That means we're gonna have to soak something first. So these towers spawn, so we have to soak these first. And then these people are gonna get tethered. Now these are gonna do Protean cleaves, so they're gonna get cleaved. And then next we take these cleaves or tethers from them. Take the cleaves away, and we can maybe pre-position for our towers that we have to soak next. Like so. And you want to just take these tethers kind of based on proximity. That makes it very simple. But you can also have very cursed patterns where like your tower's on the opposite side. Usually this kind of works out. You just gotta get kind of used to it. It's not that bad of a mechanic. Unenlightenment, another raid wide with burn. And then we go to more of the harder mechanics in this fight. So you just heal through this. Seal Scurrying Sparks. Now this is not, yeah, so this is an Exaflare. We have two debuffs this time. We have the ones that we're familiar with the soak, the pair soak. Now since both supports have it, we have to do melee ranged split up. So I'm gonna go with Ashe in this case, and the melees are gonna go north-ish. So we see the Exaflare spawn on the outer edge on the left and right side. Now you can do a priority here where the DPS or me and ranged are south and east, and the tanks and melee are north and west, and you just take those corners. Now let's say it was rolls and not melee's range split, then me and the tank would be north and west, and the DPS would be south and east. And we just take those walls, and we just like kind of move around about there. And since we have to check whether the debuff is gonna, like which debuff is gonna expire first, we can see the partner duo, in this case the 7-second timer, is gonna expire first. So we're gonna have to stack together with partners, and you can be perfectly in between these two Exaflares, which is very nice. Also be aware of this one. You want to like be in this corner, so this one is, otherwise this one's gonna cleave you. So as Ashe can see, like he jumps. So you soak this together, and then you spread behind the ones that go out, or kind of just in a general area that's not cleaving anyone else. Very simple. Next up, it's very important that everybody is alive right now. If anyone died during Exaflares, get them up immediately. If they are not up on time, then this will very much be a wipe. Because here, it's limit cut. Limit cut goes out really, really fast. Everybody needs to have survived the Exaflares. What's happening here is very simple. We all get a certain number, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now there's markers in the certain corners, and we just get knocked back to those markers. So what we have is we have markers all strewn about the arena. We have 1 in center, 2 in this corner, 3 in this corner, 4 in that corner. What the boss is gonna do is he's gonna jump on certain player and do a plus shaped attack in that direction. So let's say Ashe here. If he jumps to Ashe, he's gonna do a plus shade in that direction, and you can see how it's gonna look like in a second. Boom. So this is a bit scuffed, but normally you would have to be on 1 marker, which is a bit north of center, and the boss would do a plus shaped attack, and then cleave the person there, whoever has 1, and then he's gonna jump to 2. Boom. You can see the cleave is relatively large. 1 moved north. You can also move east or west here, it doesn't really matter. But remember that whenever you get cleaved, you have to move. Very important. So 2 gets cleaved, 2 is already moving. Now I get cleaved, and now I move in either one of these cardinals. Okay, 10 gets cleaved, and now he's gonna always, after 4 cleaves, he's gonna jump center. And since he's jumping center from this position, he's gonna do a cross. And we'll be safe in these positions. Very simple. There's multiple ways of doing this. Like you can do plus shaped attacks, whatever. But like this is a way you can do it. You can do it this way. You can also say like, oh no, let's not do it this way. Let's have one on this like little edge, and then like make more plus shaped. And I mean, you can have multiple ways of doing it. Very, very simple. Alright, so you just heal up. Another tank buster. Now there's one more mechanic that comes after this. Usually you have enough damage, you just kill it. If you have the gear and the pots. But what happens here is another one of the basically the debuffs. This debuff is a tower that you're dropping. So you're dropping a certain tower that you have to soak. You're also gonna have no, it's not gonna show. And you also have to soak a certain well, I can show this another time, but there is a certain way of solving this strat. Usually if you do mechanics correctly, you never see this mechanic, you just skip it. It's really not that bad, but I will make a more detailed explanation about this mechanic later, whenever I have the time. Because it's a relatively complex mechanic. Now, onto the third boss. This is probably the one that people have been looking for the most. I will skip a bit more ahead where it is yeah, interesting. And I will go through some of these mechanics and explain them as they start. Third boss is probably the hardest one, as they should be. Also, in my opinion, the most fun. So, Kinky Release is the raid wide. Always starts with a raid wide. Just heal through it. No burn, no bleeds. It's very easy. Now you might be familiar with this mechanic from the Variant dungeon, but in this case you can see he has a arrow and then a certain pizza slice that is not taken. And he also has a little fire debuff, or fire kind of thingies on the sides. This means he is gonna cleave in a certain direction and also in his hitbox. So you want to be outside of his hitbox and also on the pizza slice that he does not cleave, which is in this case on his right. So over here between 2 and C will be safe. Very simple. Now the tricky part is he chains these all together. And you can see once I'm in this position, oh, this looks like it's gonna be on the north side of him. But he's facing this direction. Is this not confusing? No, this is very simple. Once you move in this direction, you're gonna have to think about where he cleaves from this new vantage point. So, in this case, he's cleaving, or in front of him will be safe, right? And he's gonna do fire again, so you want to be on the opposite side. In this case, you have to move all the way on the opposite side between these two purple markers for the next safe spot. Now I would definitely recommend popping sprint for that, because it's a very tight window where you have to move. And then it's going to be on the same side and in, if that makes sense. Because you're going to have to end up on this side, and then this will count. So you can see. The water means it's going to be a donut. The fire means it's going to be a AoE inside of his hitbox. Might be familiar with that from Variant. And then it's gonna be in, and like that. Hopefully that makes a little sense. There's a lot of yeah, a lot of these that come back or return throughout this fight. So we have another one of these. It's gonna be where we are, because it's gonna be out and fire, and then it's gonna be to the right and in. It's very simple to think about it like that. To the right and in, and then to the left and out. So to the right and in, and to the left and out. Very simple. Alright, we get a tank buster. This is also a cleave, so make sure to not stand with the tank. Scarlet Auspice is a certain mechanic. Now since he's burning with fire, that means you have to make sure you're not standing inside of the hitbox. There it goes. And then it's gonna do these cross little pattern on the ground. Just dodge this first. and then line spawn on the ground. This is not scary at all, doesn't really matter right now. Invocation of Vengeance. We'll get debuffs again. You're very familiar with how these debuffs work by now. So we have a 2-stack debuff. Again, this is also always roll based. And then we have some spread markers. Now since the roll base is expiring first, that means we have to stack first and then spread later. What's happening next is that these lines on the ground are gonna light up. Now since these lines are gonna light up, that means we're gonna have to go to beta in this case, because that corner will be safe. So we're gonna have to stack up with partners near beta. And you can see that one person is getting tethered, right? And he's gonna do a cleave where south will be safe. So you have to orientate this ad in such a way that the safe spot on beta in this quadrant will be safe. And since I am the one that's tethered, what I do is I go to beta marker and stand a bit in front of it, facing the boss. Because what's happening next is this ad is gonna teleport behind me, behind the direction I'm facing. Since I'm facing towards the boss in this case, he's gonna teleport on beta and then cleave behind him, creating a safe spot on that square. It's very important to realize that, look at him here, he teleports behind me, turns around and starts cleaving. So a very nice way of thinking about this is that he will always spawn or go behind you and then orientate himself towards where you are facing. That's very important. So your direction, so if I were to look to the right or left in this case, he would teleport to the right and then cleave in this, or like this section would be safe and cleave all of this. But if I were to be facing to the right here, then he would teleport on the left in this case, and then this whole section would be safe. So I want to make sure that I create a safe pocket behind me. So that's what I'm doing here. There are other variations of this where he will do a right side cleave or a left side cleave. That will be safe. So in this case, behind, or like south, I would say, south safe. But you can also have left safe or right safe. Let's say he has left safe in this case. What I go about explaining earlier in this fight. Let's say I have left safe. I want to go to the marker and then go to facing the boss. Go to the left. So in case I have right safe, for example, I move over here. I stand here, the ad will teleport here, and then go. The right side will be safe. Very simple, but let's say it has left side safe, for example. Then I move to the left, facing the boss, and then the ad would teleport on C again, and then whole left side will be safe from the cleave. Every time he does this little teleports that I will show here. Oh, this is a bit, sorry. Every time he does his teleport, you have to make sure you move, because you are not safe whenever you bait these ads. So always make sure you move after you've baited. So now the stack has finished, and now we're gonna spread. A nice way to think about where these safe spots might be is that you can draw a diagonal line from C and then make like a little triangle here, and this, like everything behind this diagonal line, will be safe. So everything behind C will be safe diagonally. So we just go anywhere behind C here to spread out. And you can see these spreads are very, very small, so you have a lot of room to spread. And that's that mechanic. Another raid wide. Not too bad. Now, the next two mechanics are the final two mechanics of this fight, and they are the most difficult, so I will take some time to explain them. First, we have shadows spawn. These shadows are going to tether to random players, and they're going to do south cleaves. They're always going to do south cleaves. So what we do is we pre-position with the tank and the melee up north, and then the other DPS and the healer up south. We prioritize the tank and the melee, north and west, and then the healer and ranged, east and south. Now, what we want to check is whether there are 2 tethers on one side or not. Because let's say me and the ranged, Ashe in this case, have a tether, then the DPS have to swap. And then Ashe will go with the tank, and the other melee would go with me. In this case, we're ping chilling, we're not doing much, because we have 1 tether on each side. Very nice. These arms will spawn now. You might be familiar with this from Variant Dungeon whenever you left the katana open, the katana case. These arms are going to do very big raid cleaves, and there's only going to be 1 safe spot on north and south corner. And now what happened next is the boss will show a certain pattern. Now this pattern, where there's 3 little, what you call it, rotated squares far apart, means that there's going to be a proximity bait that's happening on the furthest player from the boss. You can see that here. This proximity bait also gives a bind. It gives a magic vuln, sure, but it also gives a bind, and this bind you do not want to cleave your partner with. If you cleave your partner, that means I would not be able to move after this ad is teleported, so I would get cleaved, because I have to move. So you can see, since he does a south bait, I want to position him as far in as I can, so he teleports behind me. And then I have to move, so I'm in the safe spot, right? But if Ashe were to be closer to me, then I would get cleaved by this puddle that's proximity based bait. And then I would not be able to move and get cleaved. And basically insta-die. So you want to make sure you're very far to the wall for this. Now there's another pattern to this, where it's going to be 3 squares close together. And that means it's going to be a close proximity bait. And then the DPS will have to, or whoever does not have the tether, will have to be very much center, so where I'm standing currently. And then I would be going next to the wall. You can see again, I'm facing the boss in this case. Direction is, or facial direction is very important here, because then the ad will teleport behind me and cleave behind me, so that the person who cannot move right now is safe. Okay, so there it goes. And then also one more thing you have to look out for, which is the last thing you have to look out for, is after these south cleaves that happen, you can see here, they store another one. Now this can be different or the same. You have to very much watch out for this. This is something that most people overlook at first, because it's like you have to look at so many things. But you can just have one person, or the people that has tether, just look for the ad, and then the people who do not have tether can look for whether it's close or far proximity. So since I can see that the right side will not be cleaved second, I just communicate that to my partner after I've done my first bait. So now I move to the safe spot, and then go right of this ad. Now this is seems like a very tight safe spot. But if you very much hug the ad, you will not get hit by these arm cleaves. Just make sure to hug the center of the ad, and you will not get any damage. It seems like it's very tight, but it's always fine. So very much make sure you see whatever the second stored cleave is. Now he does a little bit raid-wide damage, not too bad. Okay, now we adjust into our east spot, which is our priority. And now we can see the right is the next safe spot. Now it's also a far proximity, but since I do not have the tether, but Ashe has it, then I will be close to the wall. Is this far proximity? If this was close proximity, our roles would be reversed. Ashe would be facing the wall here where I'm standing, and then I would be center to break the proximity. And then we do very much the same thing. He moves in, like here, and then since the right side was safe, we just chill here. And that's it. That's this mechanic. There's another raid wide after this. Yeah. It's probably one of the harder ones, but it should not be too bad. After this, he will do a charge with a water version. Since it's water, it's a donut, so just stand inside of the hitbox. Very simple. Next, more of these crosses. Just dodge them again. But this time, they're water. Water crosses. What does it mean? I wonder. you can see this one is charging. What does that mean? It's gonna do this. You're probably familiar with this. You've probably seen it in alliance raids or what else. But this is very much like a dance. You just want to make sure you do not get cleaved by any of these waves that are spawning and then expanding. What I would recommend is to... Oh, this was a bit far of a rewind. But what I would recommend is to stand next to the ones that are charging and then immediately move in once they have done their initial cleave. So once you see this, you can move in. And then you do so for the second one as well. And the third and the fourth. So you can move inside of that. And then the fourth happens, you move inside of that. And then while that's happening, the boss will do those more of those charges. So this is opposite and in, because it's water. So facing the boss is facing this way, so it's opposite and in, gonna be on that side. And then it's gonna be right and in. And then opposite and out. There we go. And then opposite and out. So pay attention to the boss while this dance is going on. You'll get used to this. It's not a very much mechanical thing. You just gotta make sure you watch your movement. And then there is one final mechanic. Probably the hardest mechanic in this dungeon, but it's not too bad once you know how to do it. So there's gonna be all of these clones that are gonna spawn. And one of them is blue. How odd. Now, we killed the boss here, of course. If you do this fight very well, you can just kill the boss before this happens. But I want to take my time to go over this last mechanic because a lot of the people who try to clear this for the first time will have to go through this mechanic probably before you have to kill it. So, in order to do that, I will pull a little vid up for that. Let me get it. I think it's this one. Yep. So, let me see. Here it is. Yeah, this is the most chaotic version. So, what we do is we identify the blue ad. The blue ad has something special. You might remember this from the variant as well, but the blue ad is going to do a puddle over here on this side, and it's going to be larger than the others. So what's happening for that is that we have to go to a safe spot that's away from this blue puddle. So what I do here is I know 2 and 3 are going to be safe. And then we're all tethered to these ads, and these are all going to do south cleaves first, but then they're going to do something else after. It's either going to be right or left. It's never going to be opposite. But what's going to happen here is, so this is going to be a big puddle here. And then I'm going to be with the tank on the right, because we do supports counter or clockwise from the blue, wherever he spawns the puddle, or from the blue ad basically. So supports go clockwise, I would be with the tank, DPS go in this direction because 2 and 3 are safe in this case because the blue ad is over there, or the blue ad's exploding there. And then what we identify second is what our cleave is. So our second cleave, for me, is right. For the tank, it's left. Now that's perfect. That's what you want it to be. So since it's right for me, what I want to do is position myself against the wall in this direction, so that after the ad teleports behind me and does a south cleave, I can move to the right and then make that zone safe. Now, to have a interesting view of this, I will show this little picture. Now, this might seem very scuffed and it's just a very crude drawing, but this basically is the position that I have right now, where this is the blue puddle that explodes. I'm facing my ad in this direction, so it's going to spawn here. And then 1 will be the initial safe spot, and then 2 will be the second safe spot. So first we're going to have to be between the ads, and then we got to move in, like, towards the center to be safe for the second cleave. That's how we want to line these up. So since I have my second cleave going right, that would be safe. So I will go on this left side, and since the tank has the left side safe, he's going on this little corner. So again, to look at it in perspective, you can see here I will move here. The ads spawn behind us, or basically on top of us. They're gonna do cleaves. We're gonna move into this little square. That's gonna be safe. I mean, yeah, it was a bit slow. That's okay. And then we move onto our markers, the 2 and the 3 marker. They will be safe. You don't have to go further than them. And that's the mechanic. So there's a lot of shit going on here. Basically, the most important part is to identify the blue ad. So since we identified the blue ad here, we know since tanks are going, or tanks and healers are going clockwise, first priority, we either are on 2 or 3, because the blue ad is either gonna spawn his puddle or on beta or on alpha. If it's on beta, so it's gonna be a big explosion here, then 3 and 4 will be the safe zones. And then supports are on 3, DPS are on 4. If the blue ad does it on alpha in this case, then what we just had, we go on 2 and 3. So what he does here. It's far, so 2 and 3 are safe. One thing that's very, very tricky is that here, for this second part, I think, I'm quite sure, quite positive, the sides that are going to be safe can be the same for one side. So let's say me and the tank had the same side that was safe for cleave, so both right, for example, and the DPS had the same. Then we have to adjust. So then we have to have one person from support and one person from the DPS swap. So in this case we do Toby and me, but you can pre-assign whoever you want. I would say have the ranged or like the ranged rotate. Whoever has the most freedom of movement. You can also have the melee because you can teleport and that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is very important to look out for if there is the similar side cleaves, because you cannot be positioned like this next to the wall if you have the same side cleaves, right? Because if I have my ad baited on this end and it's gonna cleave to the right, or right will be safe, and he has the same on the right is safe, then he's gonna have a safe spot that's inside of the fucking away from the arena basically. So you have to swap that around. But yeah, that's basically this mechanic. If you do it correctly, it's very simple. You have to very much watch out that you are very much in the corner here to bait these initial ads. If you are not far enough in the corner, these ads will get too close together, they're gonna tether, and then after they've done all their cleave stuff, they're gonna do a room AoE explosion for 1,000,000 damage. You cannot invuln it, it's basically a guaranteed wipe. Now, usually this is basically skipped if you do all the previous mechanics correctly with pots and 2-minute windows correctly, so you don't have to worry too much about it, but in case it happens, there you go. So yeah, best of luck with clearing this and farming them out. I hope that we can see more of you guys in the community. Yeah, GG.